In the autumn of 2004, a private survey ship spent 11 days mapping the floor of a deep ocean canyon off the northwest coast, and on the 9th day, its sonar recorded something the company that owned the data would spend the next decade insisting was an equipment error. The ship was not looking for anything alive. It had been hired by an energy consortium to map the seabed along a proposed pipeline route, which meant dragging a sonar back and forth across the canyon for days, building a picture of the bottom one strip at a time. The work is slow. The sonar paints the floor in pale grays, ridges, and silt. On the 9th night, it painted something else. A single shape moving along the canyon wall, far too large to be anything the crew had a name for. And it was not passing through. It was following the canyon, the way a road follows a valley, as though it had traveled that exact route 1,000 times before. The data was logged automatically. It was reviewed once by the ship's lead technician. Then the relevant files were flagged, copied to the client's servers on shore, and removed from the working drives. What follows is assembled from the maintenance logs that survived, the statements of 3 crew members, a printed section of the sonar record that one technician kept, and the testimony of a marine geologist who was brought in to explain the anomaly and instead spent 4 days proving it was not one. The official record describes the contact as a sensor artifact caused by a thermal layer in the water. The ship's own logs show the sonar was functioning normally, before, during, and after. To understand what actually moved along that canyon wall, we have to start with the canyon itself. The shape was following a submarine canyon, a steep channel cut into the edge of the continental shelf where the seabed falls away from a few hundred feet to thousands within a short distance. These canyons are not empty. Cold, nutrient-heavy water funnels up through them from the deep, and that upwelling draws in life at every level: fish, squid, seals, and the whales that follow the food along the coast. It is one of the richest strips of ocean in the region, and also, by simple ecology, exactly the kind of place that would draw something large enough to hunt whales. And the deep water in it is cold. That detail matters, and we will come back to it, because the first thing people say is that the water is too cold for a shark like this. The assumption is wrong, and the reason it is wrong is the whole point. The man who reviewed the data first was the ship's lead technician, a 44-year-old named Rourke, with 20 years of survey work behind him. His first assumption was a glitch. His second was a whale. By the third pass over the same stretch, both explanations had failed. The contact was a single solid return, denser than a whale, longer than anything he had logged in 2 decades. And it was moving with the canyon, not across it. He flagged it and called the bridge. Over the next several hours, the ship passed over the same stretch 4 more times, and the sonar caught the shape on 3 of them. Rourke's record shows the contact at a different point each time, always lower, following the same line of the wall as it descended toward the deep. The depth readings drop in sequence: 800 feet, 1,200 feet, 2,000 feet. The shape was not fleeing, it was traveling, working its way down at the slow, deliberate pace of an animal that knew exactly where it was going. This is the detail that separates the canyon recording from every blurry photograph waved off as a hoax. The sonar did not catch a monster lunging at a boat. It caught a pattern, a creature using a single deep channel as a route, descending the same wall, the way a predator uses a trail. And a marine geologist would later argue this was the most important thing about the entire record, because it answered a question that no sighting ever had. That geologist was a woman named Halvorsen, brought in for the most ordinary of reasons. The consortium wanted someone to confirm the contact was a thermal artifact, so they could close the file and keep mapping. She had built her career on seabed data. She did not believe in sea monsters, and that disbelief was exactly why they hired her. She expected to spend an afternoon on a one-page memo. She spent 4 days, and at the end she could not give them the memo they wanted. The thermal layer explanation was the first thing she ruled out. A temperature layer can fool a sonar, but it produces a diffuse, shifting smear, not a single solid shape that holds the same size and density across passes hours apart. The contact was too consistent, too defined. It returned sound the way a large, solid body returns sound, and it was the size of a small whale, so she went through every living species it might be and eliminated them one by one. Too large for any shark on record. Wrong movement for a whale, which would surface to breathe and would not track a canyon wall downward for hours. Too solid for a basking shark, drifting with the current. She was left with a shape that matched nothing alive today. It matched one thing only, a thing she had no reason to know about until she went looking. Otodus Megalodon, the largest predatory shark that ever lived, rebuilt by science from teeth and vertebrae to the length of a small whale, with a body and tail powerful enough to drive through the water the exact way the sonar showed. A species the textbooks say died out around 3.5 million years ago. The textbooks also say it died out because the oceans cooled, because it was a warm water animal that lost its shallow nurseries. But that rests entirely on where its teeth have been found, and teeth are only found where geologists look. In the deep ocean, the floor has barely been sampled at all. If a population followed the cold and the prey down into deep water as the surface cooled, their teeth would settle on a seafloor no survey has ever touched. The absence of evidence in a place where no one has ever looked is not evidence of absence. That answers the cold water objection. The shape in that canyon was not living in warm shallows. It was living in the cold deep, in exactly the water people insist it could not survive, because the assumption that it needs warmth was only ever an assumption about its teeth. 2 more objections, and the data answered both at once. People ask how there could be enough of these animals to survive, and why we are not finding whales bitten in half on every beach. We may be looking at the very last of them, a deep water animal, slow to mature and extraordinarily long-lived, in numbers low enough that a population could persist in unmapped water for a very long time. But the sonar added something better than a guess. It showed where the animal goes. It does not patrol the surface where we would see it. It works a deep canyon and carries what it kills downward into thousands of feet of water no one surveys, where a carcass never washes ashore because it never comes up. That is why we do not find the evidence. It sinks into the one part of the ocean we have decided is empty. The animal is not hiding, it is simply living somewhere we never look. Halvorsen wrote all of this into a report and submitted it, expecting a serious conversation. The rejection came in 8 days. The memo did not address her data, not the tracking pattern, not the species elimination, not the depth readings. It addressed only what it called the commercial sensitivity of the survey and the risk of delay to the pipeline project. And that phrase explains everything. A deep ocean predator of unknown status in the proposed corridor would have meant years of survey, legal challenge, and cost the consortium had no intention of absorbing. The price of taking her seriously was hundreds of millions of dollars. The price of burying her was one contractor's reputation. They chose the contractor. Her contract was not renewed. The data was reclassified as proprietary and locked behind the client's legal department. The printed section Rourke kept, the only part outside the company's control, sat in a drawer for years before he passed it to a researcher. Because the survey did not end on the 9th night. On the final day, a crew member named Daugherty, 29, a sonar operator on his 2nd season, was working a small inspection boat alongside the ship when the weather turned. The boat swamped and went down in minutes. The other man aboard was recovered. Daugherty was not. His body was never found. The report lists drowning in adverse weather on a day the ship's own log records as calm until the squall hit, and it makes no mention of where the boat was working, which was directly over the stretch of canyon where the shape had last been recorded descending. Years later, Rourke wrote to Daugherty's family. He told them he did not know what took the boat down and would not pretend to. But he told them what the company had spent a decade hiding, that on the 9th night, the sonar had recorded something the size of a whale moving along the canyon below them, something that should not exist in any ocean on this planet, following a route it clearly knew by heart. The company had called it a glitch because the truth was too expensive to be allowed, and he told them the thing he could never stop turning over, which was that the animal on the screen had not seemed to be searching for anything. It moved like it already knew where the food would be, like it had been hunting that canyon long before the survey ship arrived, and would go on hunting it long after. The canyon is still there. The pipeline was rerouted, quietly, around it, for reasons the consortium has never explained. The data has never been released, and whatever moved along that canyon wall in the autumn of 2004, descending into water no one has ever mapped, is, by every indication, still down there, following the same route, in the cold, in the dark, in the part of the ocean we have decided, against all the evidence, is empty. If you have seen something in the water that you could not explain, something too large, too deep, too old for the ocean you thought you knew, we want to hear about it. Leave it in the comments. Subscribe to my channel for more accounts from the deep.